Hi, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Making of Millennial Mogul. Today I'm sitting with millennial money expert Tonya Rapley, who's also the CEO and founder of My Fab Finance. In 2013, Tonya started her blog, My Fab Finance, having no professional background in finance, hating math, and is now recognized by Forbes, Black Enterprise, Centric TV, the list goes on, as a millennial money expert, and also travels across the country doing seminars, workshops to help millennials get their money right. So today we are going to learn a little bit more about Tonya's journey and also offer you guys some tips on how you can start your side hustle and turn your side hustle into a full-time hustle. All right. So Tonya, thank you so much for sitting with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so excited because, before we get started, I want to share with the audience my experience with your brand.
Yeah.
So in 2013, I attended a workshop. It was a Frugal Fab 5 event.
Yes.
You, Tiffany Alicia, the Budgetnista, love her, and some other fabulously financial, frugal, and, ladies had this workshop and it really helped me get my financial life together, like all the way together, and really helped me change my life through my finances, because after doing that and using those resources that I got from the workshop, I now didn't feel like Sally Mae was balancing my checkbook. Like she was running my finances in my, and I felt empowered. I still wasn't making a whole lot of money, but I now felt empowered because I was telling my money what to do.
Yeah.
So it was incredible and life-changing. So
happy to hear that.
Absolutely. So yeah, because if your money's not right, your life isn't right. So tell us a little bit more about how you started. I remember you said through a conversation we had that you started My Fab Finance out of necessity.
Yeah.
Where were you, financially and otherwise, that you felt like My Fab Finance needed to be in the world?
So I was a college graduate. I graduated in 2008 2007. The recession happened in 2008. And pretty much my finances have been just like this hodgepodge of stumbling around and putting things together. But I really ignored the financial basics. I was ignoring my credit score. I didn't have any money in savings. I hadn't even started investing. And I realized that, I was over 25. I was getting to a point where I was going to approach my 30s and not have my life together. And one of the things that I said during my 20s is like, I'm going to live during my 20s, and in my 30s, like all the lessons that I learned during my 20s, I'll apply it then. And I wasn't in a financial position to apply those lessons. And I looked like I had it all together, but I didn't have it together. I had no idea how to get it together. But then I started just talking to my sister and other people and just realizing that there were other people who were figuring it out, and that I wasn't going to let not having a background in finance, not having the resources to hire a financial advisor, keep me from getting my financial situation together. And so I embarked on a journey to learn what I could. And it's been a beautiful experience. I mean, not only have I empowered myself to now work for myself full time, but women like yourself and other people, just helping them realize that they don't have to be paralyzed by their finances. And so it started as a journey for me, but it became a journey for other people.
Absolutely. Now, I like going through your workshops and also like the online challenges and all that stuff. It's like it took the shame out of being a financial hot mess and not knowing anything about what you're doing. And there's this community, and I'm telling you, like, good credit's the new black. Like,
right.
I understand credit now. You know what I mean?
It's the bag.
Yeah.
Like, good credit is the bag
it's
now.
The Louis Vuitton bag. Like, it's in style, it's in fashion. And because I understand it now, I know, I was able to bring my credit score from like in the 500 or 600 to like a high 700. So I mean, I'm just like, yo, and this is someone who didn't know much. My budgeting experience was just save all your money, which is not the best thing to do.
Which is what most parents tell us, just save for a rainy day. But
right.
Like, what about all the other stuff that happens?
You need to live. And, going into budgeting for different things in life, what you do uniquely is help us live while we prepare. So tell us a little bit more about your unique spin on, budgeting and finance and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so the mission of My Fab Finance is to help people break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck so that they can do more of what they love. And I'm really passionate about that do more of what you love piece because I've met so many people who financially, like they have everything together, but they're not living life. They're not enjoying their life. You know, they leave stuff to family members, but they never left the country, or they never experienced what real freedom feels like. Or they don't even know what they're passionate about. Like I remember having a conversation with a woman who was in her 60s and she had worked all her life and had no idea what she was passionate about. And she's like, I just don't have any passion. And I don't feel like that's a full quality of life. And so with My Fab Finance, I don't just want to focus on your financial picture. I want to make sure that you're actually enjoying your life and enjoying the benefits of being financially free, because it's like, what's the point of saying you have money in the bank without doing what you want to do? Period. It's just like, you can just say I have money, but it's like but you're not really living. So for My Fab Finance, that's really important. And like travel is really big. And so I look at it as, I approach finance as like, I'm not your auntie, I'm not your mom, I'm not your grandma, I'm like your cousin who is relatable and like just happened to get her stuff together. It's like, girl, you can do this too. And my approach is like helping people understand that you can be fashionable for less. You can travel for less. You can begin to start a business. I don't want to say necessarily for less, but you can begin to start a business and do these things that you're interested in doing, and your money doesn't have to hold you back. It's like going from being problem oriented to solution oriented. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we do with a lot of the content that we create at My Fab Finance. It's not about having a magic wand and immediately changing your situation. It's about living your best life while you're changing your situation so that you can really live your best life after you do.
Awesome. So when you decided to start My Fab Finance, tell us a little bit more about what your situation was like, working full-time, finances, like, you know, where you were at that point.
So when I started My Fab Finance, I was working at a nonprofit in Brooklyn, and I was in grad school, actually. So I built My Fab Finance while I was in graduate school and working a full-time job. So when anybody tells me they don't have time to do stuff, I'm like, that's an excuse. I banish all socially acceptable excuses from my life. And it's like, no, if you want to do it, you're going to make a way. And it started out as a blog. It started out as a conversation I was having with my little sister. And I wanted free clothes from companies. So I was like, you know what? I want free clothes. Like, I just want Macy's or someone to sponsor me with free clothes, and H&M and all them. So I'm just going to create a blog about being financially responsible and fabulous, and then they're going to send me free clothes. Like, that's what I wanted out of My Fab Finance. And then I started My Fab Finance in January, and that June, I took my first trip to Europe with my mother and my sister. We went to London and Paris. And it was pulling teeth to get that time off from my job, from my boss. And I was like, I had such a good time in Paris and London. And I was like, I don't want someone to tell me when I can go anywhere and what I can do and so forth. I want to work for myself. And then at that point, I was also hearing about a lot of bloggers who were working for themselves. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn My Fab Finance into a full-time situation so that I can do what I want, when I want, and make money doing something that I enjoy doing. And that was when the ball started rolling then and there.
Wow.
And so, yeah, but I was still in graduate school, started My Fab Finance in 2013, didn't graduate from graduate school until 2015. So pretty much while I was laying the groundwork, I was still in school. Like, cover of Black Enterprise happened, I was going to class. Like, grabbed the cover of the newsstand, went to class. Like, so there were so many things that were happening, and I still had my full-time job, and I was having to request time off, but really just building it while, and like having my full-time job essentially invest in My Fab Finance. So taking money from that and using that to create my website and do other things that I wanted to do with the business so I could take it to the next level.
Absolutely. So I remember you said about a year into starting your blog, you knew that you wanted to make it your full-time. What were some of the first steps that you took to make that happen?
I started investing in the site.
Okay.
So with me, I'm a Gemini, and I've had several other passions. And so I know myself, and I have to make sure that I'm going to see this passion through before I start allocating financial resources to it. So after blogging consistently for about 6 months, then I decided I was going to go ahead and get someone to design a professional logo and set up a professional website. Because up until then, it was just this janky banner that I designed myself in Photoshop. It's like, I wish I had it because it was so hideous. But I designed that banner and threw up a Photoshop website. And then that's when I actually decided I was going to use somebody else to make it look more presentable. And so I did that, and then I started to use Pinterest and other resources just to find out how people were making money blogging. Really, and the interesting thing about My Fab Finance and a lot of blog businesses is that a lot of your revenue might not necessarily come from the blog itself. So that's one of the things I learned and found out with My Fab Finance was like, affiliate relationships and other things, they bring in a decent amount of money, but not enough to pay my bills. And so I had to find ways to explore other ways to make money with My Fab Finance. So after getting it to a place where I was comfortable sharing it with the world, then I started looking at, okay, what's my plan to generate revenue outside of my business? And for that, that was public speaking, that was creating products, that was also coaching, offering courses, and just figuring out different ways to bring in revenue. So now today, My Fab Finance has about 6 revenue streams, whether that's me freelance writing, whether that is me consulting influencer brands who want to connect with financial influencers or being an influencer myself, the Super Fab Financial Planner, the Financial Success Planner, which are both bestsellers, and then my online courses and my master classes. And so really just starting to diversify, but I didn't do that all at once. And that's what's important to note. It's like you can't create all this stuff all at once, but you start to create your vision and then stair step it, like, okay, I'm going to create my book these next couple of months, and then next I'm going to do this, and next I'm going to do this, and then I'll create my media kit so I can pitch myself as an influencer and reach out to brands and partner with them. So it's stair steps, but you should have a vision and an understanding of how other people are making money, and if that makes sense for you, and then how you can start to make money in that manner.
Yeah, definitely. So how did you prepare, like financially, kind of like to take the leap?
So I gave myself a decent amount of time. I'm a firm believer in making sure that your business is making money before you go to do it full time, because while your business will grow when you give it your all, if it's a sustainable business model, 9 times out of 10, you'll make money before you leave, unless you're starting like an app company or something like that, and you're an accelerator program. You might not be making any money initially, but for the most part, a lot of the businesses that I see people create, you can make money while you're working your 9 to 5 while you're starting that business. And for me, it was ensuring that I strengthened My Fab Finance's revenue streams and learning how bloggers generated revenue, because all bloggers won't generate revenue the same. All bloggers have different audiences, and their audiences receive things differently. So for My Fab Finance, it was like I wasn't making a lot of money with affiliate income, but I was making money freelance writing for companies and speaking and being an influencer and coordinating these financial influencer engagement events and with my products. And so I started to use that money that I was earning. So I turned from, paying off debt and improving my credit to, let me go ahead and build this flight fund. Let me go ahead, and it was actually called my flight fund when I named it with my bank. And it was, let me build this flight fund so that I can leave my 9 to 5. And so if I made money, say I had a speaking engagement, they paid me $3,500, or they paid me $500, or they paid me $5,000, that money was going into the flight fund. And I was able to, I left my job with 3 months put away in savings. And for some people that won't work, especially if you don't have support. But for me, my now husband, we were engaged at that time. We sat down and we had a conversation. I was like, look, I can't do this anymore. I feel like My Fab Finance, I feel like I can actually do that full time. I'm going to need your support while I transition into working for myself full time. And we agreed that financially he was going to support me if needed, if, things came down and I didn't have a good month. And so it's just really like, I think that that's really important, is understanding your circumstances, understanding who you can rely on. If you have family and you can move back home while you're launching your business, do it. If you have a significant other that's willing to support you while you're doing that, or, if you can take time off and get paid still from your job, then do it. But understand what your situation is. And with me, my situation allowed me to leave for 3 months. But I don't recommend that people do that if you don't have support, and you would need to look at 6 months to a year.
Okay. So how did that work out for you? How was that transition and kind of taking a leap and then starting this?
Yeah. So it's so funny. So I had just landed a client before I left my 9 to 5. The contract practically replaced my 9 to 5 income. It was a $65,000 contract. and they had sent me a bottle of champagne, like, congratulations, welcome on board. So I thought that my first day of entrepreneurship, I was gonna be like sitting on the couch, drinking mimosas and like celebrating. Like, that bottle of champagne stayed there for over a year, because it's just like, it was like, wait a minute, it's game time now. It's like, this is the championship game. Like, it's gonna continue to go on. Like, I have to bring my A game. And so it was nerve-wracking initially, because it's like, wait a minute, I just removed my parachute. Like, it's either I find a way to make money, or we don't eat, we don't pay bills. And so I think that I prepared financially and I prepared my business, but one of the things I didn't do was prepare emotionally for that transition. And just when you sit there with your thoughts like, whoa, I really did this. Like, when all the congratulations texts are done, you know, people, you know, telling you, oh my God, that's amazing, IG posts and everything, you got to sit there with your thoughts like, well, I really did this. And if I don't make money, we don't eat. Like, period. Right. And so I wasn't necessarily prepared for that emotional transition. And then 2 months later, that client that I had secured, that was a $65,000 a year contract, actually ended up experiencing a PR nightmare, and I had to walk away from them. And so, like, literally within like 2 days, I was like, I'm out of, like, I think at that point I had done like 2 months of the contract. So it's like, at that point I'm out of $57,000. Like, it's done. What are we gonna do? Wow. And I had to figure it out, you know, and definitely was depressed for a little bit, just 2 months into working for myself, but figured it out, pulled it together, and still went on to hit my revenue goal, which was to match my 9-to-5 income my first year in business, and ended up hitting that goal the following year. And so it's like, things are going to happen when you're working for yourself that you won't even forecast. Like, I've learned, like, not to count checks before they arrive, because everybody has different pay dates. Like, one client might pay you immediately, and the next client might take 90 days to pay you. And you might have to remind them a couple of times. Like, everybody's not as quick about giving you your money as you like them to be. And it's just, it's very different. It's beautiful though. It's freeing. Right. It's nice to know that we did our honeymoon, and my husband, we did our honeymoon in Bali in Thailand. And to know that I didn't have to tell anybody that I wanted days off. Right. We just picked up, woke up, worked in the morning while my husband was sleeping, went out and explored the countries. And just having that freedom is beautiful.
Absolutely. Through a conversation we had, you told me, like, before you actually took the leap, you took some classes and coaching to actually, like, prepare you to start this. Tell us a little bit more about that, and like the sacrifice, financial sacrifice it took to do it.
Yeah, because like, I didn't just leap and say, okay, I'm gonna do this on my own. I've worked with at least 3 to 4 coaches over the span of building my business, because I think that coaches they can see things in your business that you can't see. They can prepare you for things that you might not typically be prepared for, and they can help you create your structure, because they've been there and done it before. So when I knew I was going to leave my 9-to-5, I ended up working with Raven Jones of Fire Your Boss Academy. I think now she's changed that to Pink Slip something, but Raven is amazing. She was a Fire Your Boss Academy then, and she helped me figure out like how I was going to structure my business during that transition phase, how I was going to price my products in order to now compensate for not having a 9-to-5 income, because doing it as a side hobby is very different from doing it as a full-time business. So I worked with her initially. I've worked with social media coaches on like whether it's selling or properly using social media. I have a mastermind that I'm a part of now, a mastermind group, and my coach Julian Gordon is just one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. Really helps me poke holes in my business, because as a business owner, you don't need yes people around you. Like, you need people to poke holes and say, this doesn't make sense. How are you going to replicate that next year? What is this taking out of you? Is this a productive activity, or is it just something that you feel like you want to do and have to do, but it's not making you any money? Like, you need people to ask you those hard questions. And sometimes that's the purpose of a coach, is to ask you those hard questions that no one who loves you is going to ask you, or like no one that like, or people, you might get to a point where no one else has been an entrepreneur in your circle. So they're just like, girl, you're doing it, you know, you out here working for yourself. Yeah. And it's like, but they can't give you that critical feedback that you need. So coaches help you sometimes mitigate the issues or the mistakes that they made, but also help you foresee like how to set your systems up and how to grow your business in ways that other people can't help you with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because like people will see on the sidelines, oh, you know, the quality looks great, your Instagram looks amazing, oh, you're doing it. Right, but I
Yes.
need to know how this. I need to
Be
be
like,
able
"But
to
my
scale
bank
this.
account-
Right,
my
like
bank
I
account does not indicate that."
exactly.
And-
That's
yeah.
where I am. I'm like, these videos look amazing. However, I need to figure out how we gonna get some money.
Yeah, exactly. And like for you, you're doing something. A lot of people, like whether it's family members or friends, you're doing something that they admire your courage and they're
Right.
inspired by your courage. But courage don't always pay the bills,
Right.
and inspiration don't always pay the bills. And so you have to figure out how to go from this space or how to find people who will support you to actually do things that help you pay the bills while being courageous and while inspiring others.
Absolutely. Now, talking about like the image online that people see, like your merchandise and your branding is like on point.
Thank
Like
you.
it is very like things are consistent. It's looking crisp. Like you come out with a new product, it's like right in line with everything. So tell us more about like what went into or what goes into your branding.
I take pride in that because it's My Fab Finance. It's fabulous because I like pretty things. I'm kind of a brand snob. I'm becoming a brand snob the more and more that I move into understanding like communications through like color communications and communications through like without even saying anything. Like what does your brand say to your potential audience or people who are receiving your message? And so with My Fab Finance, we're on our fourth brand iteration. This is like our fourth generation logo. Color scheme has always pretty much been the same, but I wanted it to be clean. I wanted it to be just fresh and clean. We've tried a few things in the past that were a little clunkier. This one that we're on right now just feels clean. It feels feminine. I want the brand to be feminine. I have a graphic designer who I work with regularly. So it's important to find someone who loves your brand as much as you love your brand. I work with graphic designers who I was just a client to them are like, okay, well, there you go. But my current graphic designer, like, she will pull me to the side, will virtually pull me to the side and be like, no, you tried to do that yourself. No. And you need someone who cares about how you're presenting yourself. And with My Fab Finance, I want to make sure that we're presenting ourselves in a way that our demographic, the fabulous millennial woman, would love to receive our materials and that they fit into her life. They don't look like a sore thumb or like, where'd you get that ugly notebook or whatever it may be. They look like something she'd actually have. And so we give a lot of thought to how our products are going to look and the products that we create. Because being in the financial space, I also have to be mindful of, I don't want to just create things for people to buy. I don't want people to buy things that don't serve them in their life. And so everything that we create kind of has to have a function, which is why we have the financial success planners and the affirmation of abundance cards, which are both beautifully branded. Shout out to Jessica Boyd of the Guild Agency, because we've been rocking together for a year and a half now.
Nice. Very cool. So, hearing your journey has been definitely inspiring, encouraging, and just how you were able to go from your full-time, really figure yourself, hear about the bumps in the middle.
I would call them hills. Like, they weren't really bumps. They felt like hills.
Because when you're actually going through it, it's different than just telling a story about it. But hearing about it, is definitely really cool. And you've been, recognized nationally and you've created this brand for yourself and it's awesome. So what would you say maybe like 3 really big lessons that you learned as an entrepreneur that you would like share with our millennial audience?
Oh, those are good questions. I would say lesson number 1 is that you need support. You can't do it alone. While I feel like God put me on this path, and God has always and will always give me everything I need to fulfill my purpose, that also means people who help me get to the next level. Whether that is a coach or a graphic designer who loves your business as much as you, or a virtual assistant who's able to free up some of your time so you can focus on income generating activities, or a manager. I brought on a manager because I realized I wasn't properly negotiating and leaving money on the table. So I brought someone in who could be that buffer between me and the client to make sure that he can play tough guy, and then I can walk in and the client hasn't had a negative interaction with me. So you do need support. Even down, like all my videos are shot by my husband. Like, I was fortunate to marry someone who had a skill set that would serve my business. But even outside of that, supporting emotionally, because some days you question, like, am I built for this? Did I do the right thing? Am I progressing towards my goals? And you need people who believe in you or who love you to kind of remind you to stop beating up on yourself. So you can't do it alone. The second one is, even though you can't do it alone, everyone who starts with you won't finish with you. And I think that that was one of the most painful things I realized, whether it was people who previously served as mentors or clients who started with me and ended up going on and working with other people once they reached a certain point in their career. Like, and I started My Fab Finance with a business partner, and I'm a solopreneur now. And so those who start with you won't necessarily finish with you. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with either of you. It just means that your paths were intertwined at a certain point, and then your paths took you different places. And so that's something important to remember. And then the last one I would say is time management is money management, because how you manage your time determines how much money you're going to have and what you're able to do with that money based on how you manage your time. So if you're constantly behind and late on bills, you're always going to be playing catch up. You can't really think clearly because you aren't properly managing your time and the money that you have. But also, if you are wasting time, then you're wasting money, because time is money, essentially. And so that's really important to understand as an entrepreneur, because when you work for a 9-to-5 job, you know, you can BS at your desk for like 30% of the day, turn some stuff in, and still get paid what you were going to get paid. As an entrepreneur, it doesn't work like that. Like, if you BS 30% of your day, then you're going to feel that in your wallet most likely, until you set your business up to operate passively. And I think a true entrepreneur doesn't just settle and, okay, my business is running properly and let me just roll with this. You're thinking about what's next. Like, you look at Elon Musk, you know, he went from PayPal to creating Tesla, and now he's thinking about the next thing. And you don't get there without properly managing your time and utilizing it as the true resource that it is. It's the one thing you can't get back. You can get money back, you can get people back, unless they, you know, transition to the next phase of life, but you cannot get your money, your time back. And so those are the 3 things I would leave with aspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Now, you had told, you mentioned something about those days, like having that emotional support when you're like, yo, is this working? Am I like built for this? Tell us about some of those fears that you had, like when, you know, like right before you took the leap, even in the beginning, and like how you were like, yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this.
Yeah. So one thing I would say is, like, when you decide to take that leap, I won't even call it a failure. Anything that's not a success is exasperated. So when you have a 9-to-5 income and you like launch a course and it doesn't really sell, you're like, oh, okay. But when you work for yourself and you put a month in to launch a course and it's kind of like crickets and people don't receive it well, or say you write this blog post that you're like, this is hot fire flames and it's going to get all this traffic, and then the traffic metrics like just like they barely move. Those things are exasperated when you are an entrepreneur, because they affect your bottom line and you're focused on the bottom line. So those are some of the things I've dealt with, where I put a lot into launching a course, worked with a course coach. We thought the course was going to do really well, and we found out that price point didn't necessarily appeal to my audience. We had to scale our price point back because we weren't selling as many courses as we had hoped. But then that you have to learn not to take things personal, because in that moment I started to take it personal. I was like, man, they don't really like me. They just follow me for whatever. And like, I had to just get out of that. And you really just have to separate yourself from that and realize, like, okay, well, what was the real reason they didn't buy this? Let me ask a few people a few questions about why they didn't purchase it. So that's definitely, it's hard not to allow that to be a blow to your ego. In the line of work I do, I've been approached by quite a few people for television opportunities that just don't pan out. It's like everything seems like it's going to line up, and then it's like, oh, it falls through the cracks. And at one point I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why isn't this working? And then you have to remind myself that our time isn't necessarily God's time, and if it's meant for you, it will happen. And that's not what's supposed to happen on my journey at this point. But you still have that initial reaction. And one of the things that I've adapted in my business is to remember that it's okay to feel things. It's okay to be disappointed. Just don't let that cripple you. So usually I'll settle into a feeling. I'll allow myself to feel angry, upset, or hurt about it for at least like 30 minutes. And then it's like, okay, so what are we going to do about this? Like, okay, what are we going to do about how that made us feel? Because sitting in that problem is not going to do anything but take you down a dark hole of depression. And, you know, the best way to pull yourself out of that is to become proactive and look at the solution so that it doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm human, you know, like at the end of the day, humans run businesses, humans create businesses. Maybe robots power them, but humans create businesses, and you're not immune from human emotions. I think you just have to deal, like, create a way for dealing with your emotions and be honest with yourself about your emotions. That's another thing. A lot of us are hiding about our emotions or lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, that one post, like, being a savage won't plug that hole in your heart. Like, a lot of us are lying to ourselves about our emotions. And when you become vulnerable with yourself and you allow yourself to feel and process, then you can turn that into power and figure out how to empower yourself based on what you were feeling. But if you don't deal, then you can't create solutions for what you don't deal with.
Right. Wow. And what would you say like three tips you would offer people who want to turn their side hustle into a full-time?
I love that you said 3 because 3 is my favorite number. My birthday just passed. It's on the 3rd. 3 is my favorite number. So 3 things if you want to turn your side hustle into a business. I would say make sure it's making money. Like, that's the first thing. Do you have a side hustle that can generate revenue? Like, we all have ideas, but there are 2 things that make ideas successful: execution and profitability. And if you can't execute your idea or your side hustle and you can't generate a profit from it, then it's probably not going to be the best thing for you to do full time. The second one I would say is never stop learning. Like, even if you're the expert in your field, find something else that you don't know about in your field or know how to do, and don't cease learning, whether it's learning how to do your own sales funnels or learning how to write copy properly, or, learning how to implement better customer service procedures in your business. Like, never stop learning. You can be a subject matter expert, but that doesn't mean you're a business expert. And the third thing I would say is win your way. So when I say win your way, you'll always have coaches, or not always have coaches, but you'll always have people who have opinions or advice about how you're doing things. And sometimes you'll have coaches who will want you to do something the way they know how. Not necessarily what's best for you, but because that's the only way they know how. And I think that it's really important to win your way, to be authentic to who you are so that it's your business, so that when you show up, you don't feel like you're acting. You're like, I'm showing up as me, which people want to get paid to be them. And early on when I started My Fab Finance as a financial educator, you guys see I have big hair and like a dashiki print kimono, like or a wax print kimono and everything. And I thought I had to look like Susie Orman or like straighten my hair and have a business suit on. And that wasn't me. I wasn't bringing myself to the table. If you see me out here, I'm going to have a hoodie on and some Jordans or some Air Maxes. And like, let's be honest about that. And let me bring that to my business, because if you're not you in your business, then you're not just a business owner, you're an actor. And that's hard to keep up. Oh, yeah. So win your way.
Yeah. Awesome. And there's that authenticity is valuable, because then you attract the other people who are like you, who relate to your story, who are also rocking Jordans and Air Maxes and, hoodies, and like, oh, 'cause she gets me. You like, she gets me. So yeah, that's something I've just learned from like people, different people saying it's like authenticity is really how you draw your audience, your tribe. So yeah, absolutely.
Yes, your tribe is waiting for you.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want a tribe of people. Like, can you imagine if you build this facade of being like, I like when I look at like beauty and style influencers, like that is so much work. When we get dressed up, when me and my husband get dressed up and I decide I want to take some photos, I'm like, I can't do that again for the rest of the month. And some people are doing that every weekend, but what if that's not really what you enjoy doing? Then you're not really free. You're like beholden to this audience of how they think you should appear every time they see you. Right. And then they're let down when they realize that's not the real you. Right. So it's just so important to like, just be authentic to who you really are. Now, if you feel like I'm the baddest out here.
And you can do it.
Yeah, and like that's who you want to become, that's one thing. But if you're just out here doing it because you think that it's going to help you attract a certain person, but it's not who you really are, then it's just not authentic. And I think that inauthenticity has no longevity.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much. I had so much fun. Definitely loved hearing about your story, your journey, and also thank you for those tips. Thanks for sitting with me. You guys can check out My Fab Finance at myfabfinance.com. Tonya has a lot of like some awesome free resources to help you kind of get your financial life together, get you started, really lay the groundwork to start handling your handle and adulting. Finally, to start adulting, but definitely check it out. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you come back next time for more Making of a Millennial Mogul.